In a world obsessed with speed, power, and control, Lao Tzu reminds us of something deeper, the quiet strength of simplicity. His wisdom, born thousands of years ago, still speaks to the chaos of modern life. These are not just lessons. They are keys to inner freedom, balance, and timeless peace. Today we uncover 10 life lessons from the Taoist master, Lao Tzu, that can change the way you see the world and yourself. Lao Tzu teaches that the greatest victory is not over others but over oneself. The human tendency is to seek control over situations, people, and outcomes. Yet every attempt to dominate the external world leads to endless struggle, because the world is always changing, always beyond complete grasp. True mastery begins inward, where the roots of perception, emotion, and thought lie. To master oneself is to understand one's desires, fears, and impulses, and to rise above them. It is to become the ruler of one's mind, not its servant. Lao Tzu understood that when a person learns to govern their inner world, the outer world naturally aligns. Self-mastery brings harmony. Control over others brings resistance. To master oneself means cultivating awareness. Most people live in reaction. They respond automatically to what happens around them, driven by habit, emotion, or pride. But the Taoist way asks for stillness before response, for understanding before judgment. When you pause, observe, and act consciously, you no longer live as a slave to circumstance. You become the calm center in the storm of life. Self-control is not suppression but awareness. It does not mean denying feelings, but seeing them clearly, letting them pass without letting them rule. The person who understands their own anger will not be destroyed by it. The one who understands their desires will not be enslaved by them. Lao Tzu's wisdom reveals that external power is fragile. Kingdoms rise and fall, influence fades, but inner power is eternal. It cannot be taken away because it is rooted in understanding. The more one seeks to control others, the weaker one becomes. For dependence on dominance creates fear of losing control, fear of change, fear of failure. The sage, on the other hand, conquers himself and therefore has nothing to lose. His peace does not depend on circumstance. It flows from his own clarity. This is why Lao Tzu says that knowing others is intelligence, but knowing oneself is true wisdom. Self-mastery also requires humility. To look inward is to confront truth, your flaws, your illusions, your hidden motives.
Most avoid this task, preferring to blame the world rather than face themselves.
But real strength is quiet and honest. It accepts imperfection and transforms it through awareness. The Tao teaches that when you stop fighting your inner nature and begin to understand it, balance returns. The uncontrolled mind is like turbulent water. It distorts everything it reflects. But when it is still, it mirrors reality perfectly. Through self-mastery, one achieves this stillness. In practical life, mastery of self means discipline without rigidity and flexibility without weakness. It means using thought as a tool, not being controlled by it. It means acting from intention rather than reaction. When someone insults you, your peace remains because your worth no longer depends on opinion. When challenges come, you remain centered because your strength is not borrowed from the outside. This calm presence is not indifference, it is mastery. It is what gives a person quiet authority, the ability to influence without force, and to lead without domination. To master oneself is to understand the limits of control. The Tao cannot be bent to one's will. It can only be followed. When you are aligned with your nature, you no longer fight against life. You guide yourself like a skilled rider guiding a horse, firmly but gently, in rhythm with the creature's movement. This is inner harmony. It brings freedom from the chaos of desire, pride, and fear. The one who masters himself is unshaken by victory or defeat, pleasure or pain. He has transcended the need to conquer the world because he has already conquered the root of all struggle, the restless mind. Lao Tzu's path is clear. He who rules himself is greater than he who rules 1,000 men. When the mind is mastered, peace follows naturally, and with peace, one discovers a power greater than any form of control. The power to live in harmony with the Tao itself. To flow with life means to surrender to the natural rhythm of existence instead of resisting it. Lao Tzu's philosophy of Wu Wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action, is not about laziness or inaction. It is about aligning with the natural current of the Tao, the universal way that governs everything. When one acts in harmony with the Tao, life becomes smooth, spontaneous, and full of meaning. But when one fights against it, frustration and chaos arise. The modern world teaches us to control, to push, and to compete. We are told that to win, we must struggle. Yet Lao Tzu reminds us that struggle is not strength. It is resistance to what is. Flow is strength. Water does not resist the rock. It moves around it. It adapts, and over time, it shapes even the hardest stone. When you flow with life, you stop forcing outcomes. You stop trying to control every event, every person, and every result. Instead, you act with awareness, responding naturally to whatever arises. Life becomes a dance rather than a battlefield. This way of living does not mean being passive, it means being deeply connected. A person who flows with life knows when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when to remain silent. They do not waste energy fighting circumstances they cannot change, like a sailor who adjusts his sails to the direction of the wind. The wise one uses life's movements to travel farther with less effort. In every moment, the Tao is moving through all things, through change, through decay, through renewal. To fight life's flow is to fight reality itself. When people resist change, they suffer. When they cling to control, they lose peace. But those who trust the flow discover a kind of inner stillness that remains untouched by external turbulence. This stillness does not come from a lack of movement, but from harmony within movement. Just as the center of a spinning wheel stays calm, the person who lives in tune with the Tao remains peaceful even as life turns around them. Lao Tzu teaches that nature never hurries, yet everything is accomplished. The river does not rush, yet it reaches the ocean. The tree does not force its growth, yet it stands tall in its own time. The same principle applies to human life. When we stop forcing our path and begin to trust the process, progress happens effortlessly. The right opportunities appear, the right people arrive, and even difficulties become teachers rather than enemies. Flowing with life does not mean giving up ambition. It means acting without attachment to the outcome. It is the art of doing without overdoing. In everyday life, this philosophy can transform the smallest moments. When plans fail, instead of becoming angry, one can observe what life is revealing. When conversations turn difficult, instead of arguing to win, one can listen with presence and understanding. When loss occurs, instead of resisting it, one can see it as a natural part of transformation. To flow with life is to recognize that nothing is permanent, and therefore nothing needs to be forced. The more you align with this truth, the lighter you feel. The energy once spent on control turns into creativity, compassion, and clarity. This wisdom has no age. It applies to every generation. In relationships, careers, and even personal goals, the same law operates. Harmony brings power. Resistance drains it. The river of life will always move forward whether you swim against it or move with it. The wise person chooses to move with it, to let go of unnecessary struggle, and to trust that every current has its destination. Flowing with life is not about giving in. It is about rising above through understanding. It is the realization that peace is not found in control but in connection. And when one learns to flow, life itself begins to flow through them. In a world filled with noise, ambition, and endless desire, simplicity has become a forgotten strength. Lao Tzu's wisdom reminds us that true power is not found in complexity, wealth, or dominance, but in the calm essence of simplicity. The more one gathers, the more one becomes burdened. The more one chases, the further peace slips away. Simplicity is not poverty. It is clarity. It is the ability to see what truly matters, to live with ease, and to let go of what does not serve the soul. The Tao teaches that when we reduce excess, when we remove unnecessary complications from our thoughts and actions, we return to the natural rhythm of life. This return is power, because simplicity allows us to act with precision and purity, without the distractions of ego or fear. In simplicity, there is freedom. When a person's life is cluttered, with possessions, expectations, or constant comparison, the mind becomes restless. It begins to seek meaning outside itself. But the more one seeks, the more one loses connection to the present. Lao Tzu invites us to step back from the noise and to find beauty in less. He saw that the way of the Tao is effortless because it does not add to itself. It flows freely like water, content in its own nature. When one simplifies, one returns to that same natural flow. Every unnecessary thought, every false desire, every attempt to prove oneself creates friction with the Tao. The wise person removes the excess and lives in harmony with what remains. Simplicity reveals the truth hidden beneath illusion. When the mind is clear, decisions become easy, and understanding arises naturally. Complexity clouds vision. Simplicity illuminates it. A simple life is not about withdrawal or detachment from the world, but about engaging with it from a place of peace. It is to enjoy what is before you without wanting more. It is to find satisfaction in the ordinary and to see wonder in the everyday. The Taoist sage lives with little yet possesses everything because contentment is his greatest treasure. He knows that when desires multiply, suffering follows. When desires fade, joy unfolds effortlessly. The strength of simplicity lies in its quiet confidence. It does not seek validation or recognition because it needs none. It is complete in itself. A simple person walks lightly, speaks with purpose, and acts with calm certainty. They are not moved by the chaos around them because their inner world is not built on noise. Lao Tzu teaches that the strongest tree is one that bends with the wind. Likewise, the strongest person is one who lives without unnecessary weight. Simplicity allows flexibility, and flexibility brings endurance. The complex breaks easily. The simple endures. When life becomes simple, clarity of purpose appears. You begin to see where your energy is wasted and where it truly matters. You stop chasing approval and start living from authenticity. Simplicity sharpens focus because there is no distraction left to confuse the heart. A simple mind is not empty. It is full of understanding. It listens deeply, observes quietly, and acts wisely. It does not react impulsively. It moves in harmony with the flow of life. This is why simplicity is power. It channels energy in its purest form, without dispersion, without conflict. In today's world, where success is measured by accumulation, Lao Tzu's message is radical. To have less is to be more. To simplify is to strengthen. Complexity leads to exhaustion. Simplicity restores balance. It is not about denying material life but mastering it. It is knowing when enough is enough and finding joy in that moment of sufficiency. The person who lives simply is no longer a slave to circumstance. They possess an inner richness that no wealth can buy. Their heart is light, their mind is clear, and their actions are aligned with the Tao. In simplicity, they discover a silent power that conquers without fighting, that leads without forcing, and that remains peaceful even in the storm. Lao Tzu believed that stillness is not emptiness, but the source of all understanding. In the quiet of the mind lies the truth that noise can never reach. The world constantly pulls us outward, toward action, opinion, distraction, and endless movement. We are taught that busyness equals importance, and that silence means weakness. But in Taoist wisdom, silence is power. It is the space where clarity is born, where chaos dissolves, and where one can hear the voice of the Tao itself. To embrace stillness is to reconnect with one's natural state, to see beyond illusion, and to rest in the simplicity of being. Lao Tzu knew that wisdom grows not through constant thinking, but through awareness, and awareness blooms only in stillness. The noise of life creates confusion. When the mind is full of opinions and desires, it becomes like muddy water, clouded and restless. But when it is left undisturbed, it clears on its own. Stillness is that quietness of spirit that allows everything to settle naturally. It does not mean doing nothing. It means acting from calm understanding rather than impulsive reaction. In stillness, decisions arise with precision because they are not clouded by fear or ego. Lao Tzu compared this state to water, which reflects the world perfectly when it is calm. The wise person learns to be like this, calm, receptive, and clear. Silence also connects us to the present moment. Most suffering comes from being trapped in thoughts about the past or worries about the future. But in silence there is only now. The Tao exists only in the present, and when one becomes still enough to experience it, the illusion of time fades. Every breath becomes a doorway to peace. Every moment of awareness becomes a return to the natural flow of life. Through stillness, one can see that nothing is missing and that peace was never lost, only covered by noise. In stillness, you also learn to listen, not just to others, but to yourself and to life itself. True listening requires silence, not just in words but in thought. It is through this deep listening that intuition awakens. Lao Tzu's wisdom suggests that when we are silent, the Tao speaks through us. Inspiration, creativity, and understanding arise spontaneously, without force. The greatest ideas often appear not in moments of effort, but in moments of quiet reflection. The mind that is still becomes a vessel for insight because it no longer resists what is. Silence also teaches humility. It reminds us of how little we truly know. In the stillness of the heart, pride fades and awareness deepens. One begins to see that wisdom does not come from arguing or proving oneself right, but from observing quietly and acting with gentleness. Those who talk the most often understand the least. Those who are silent often see the most. The Taoist master speaks few words, yet each carries weight because it arises from deep understanding. This is the power of silence. It communicates truth beyond language. Modern life fears silence because it confronts us with ourselves. In quiet moments, the hidden emotions, doubts, and truths surface. Yet this confrontation is necessary for growth. Stillness reveals what the noise hides. It brings awareness to the parts of us that seek healing. It transforms restlessness into insight. The more one embraces silence, the more one realizes that peace was never something to be found. It was something to be remembered. Lao Tzu's teaching reminds us that the universe itself operates in silence. The stars move without sound, the seasons change without announcement, and nature grows without noise. The Tao does not speak, yet it creates all things. Likewise, the person who lives in stillness influences the world without effort. Their presence calms others, their words carry truth, and their actions flow in harmony with life. Stillness is the root of clarity, and silence is the language of wisdom. When one learns to rest in both, the mind becomes vast like the sky, open, peaceful, and free. Lao Tzu taught that the highest form of greatness is born from humility, not pride. In the Taoist view, power does not shout. It moves quietly, like water shaping the hardest rock. The truly wise do not seek to dominate or impress. They serve, observe, and lead through calm presence rather than force. Humility is not weakness. It is strength under control, the silent confidence of one who knows they are part of something greater than themselves. The proud seek recognition, but the humble seek harmony. The proud depend on approval, while the humble are free because they no longer need it. Lao Tzu reminds us that to be small in ego is to be vast in spirit. When you lower yourself, you align with the Tao, and from that alignment comes true greatness. Humility allows one to learn. The mind that believes it knows everything stops growing, but the humble mind stays open, curious, and receptive. It listens deeply to life. In every experience it finds wisdom. Lao Tzu saw that arrogance blocks understanding because it fills the heart with noise, but humility clears the space for truth to enter. To be humble is to accept that you are always a student of existence. The Tao cannot be grasped through intellect or pride. It reveals itself only to those who approach it with quiet wonder. When one is humble, one sees that life is not something to conquer, but something to flow with. In relationships, humility is the foundation of harmony. Pride separates people, but humility connects them. The humble person does not seek to be above others. They see themselves as part of others. They listen more than they speak and understand more than they judge. This is why humility commands respect naturally. It disarms hostility and invites cooperation. Lao Tzu compared humility to water. It nourishes all things without competing. It seeks the lowest places that others avoid, and yet it sustains life itself. The more a person lowers their ego, the more influence they truly hold. The path of humility also protects against suffering. Pride is fragile. It shatters easily when the world does not agree. It depends on external success, status, and validation. But humility is unbreakable because it depends on nothing outside the self. When one is humble, neither failure nor criticism can wound deeply, because self-worth no longer rests on illusion. The humble person moves with quiet assurance, unaffected by praise or blame. They understand that both are temporary shadows passing across the surface of life. Lao Tzu's wisdom teaches that the one who exalts himself will eventually fall, but the one who lowers himself will rise naturally. Just as valleys gather the rivers that mountains cannot hold, humility also reveals the beauty of balance. It teaches that strength and softness are not opposites, but partners. The strongest tree bends with the wind. The weakest one breaks. Likewise, those who are humble can adapt and endure. They yield when needed, knowing that flexibility is not defeat but intelligence. This understanding turns conflict into cooperation, tension into flow. The proud exhaust themselves trying to prove their worth. The humble conserve their energy and act with quiet effectiveness. They do not seek to be noticed, yet their actions are noticed by all. True greatness, according to Lao Tzu, is invisible. It does not come from self-promotion or power over others, but from living in harmony with the Tao. The greatest leaders are those who lead without claiming credit, whose influence lasts because it comes from sincerity, not ambition. They serve without seeking reward and accomplish without boasting. Their humility allows others to shine, and in doing so, they create greatness that endures. This kind of strength is timeless because it comes from alignment with truth, not from the shifting desires of the ego. Humility transforms the heart. It removes the walls of pride and opens the door to compassion. It reminds us that no one is above or below another, that all are part of the same flow of existence. In recognizing this, one becomes truly powerful, calm, grounded, and wise. Lao Tzu's path shows that humility is not the end of greatness. It is its beginning. When one becomes humble enough to listen to life, life itself begins to speak through them. And in that silence, true greatness is born. Lao Tzu taught that attachment is the root of suffering, and freedom begins the moment we learn to let go. To be attached is to cling to outcomes, possessions, people, or even ideas, and that clinging creates fear. We fear losing what we hold on to, and in that fear, peace disappears. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means inner independence. It means loving deeply, acting sincerely, and living fully without being enslaved by the results. Lao Tzu understood that the nature of life is constant change. Everything rises and falls, grows and fades, comes and goes. To fight this natural rhythm is to fight the Tao itself. But when one accepts impermanence, when one moves with life instead of resisting it, freedom is born. In detachment, there is power because it frees you from the illusions of control. Most people try to shape the world according to their desires, believing happiness will come once everything is perfect. But perfection never arrives and control never lasts. The Tao flows as it will, unaffected by human plans. To live in harmony with it, one must release the need to grasp. Lao Tzu compared attachment to holding water in a clenched fist. The tighter you hold, the more it slips away. Letting go is not losing. It is trusting. It is realizing that life unfolds perfectly when we stop interfering with it. Detachment also brings clarity. When the mind is attached, it becomes clouded by expectation and fear. We see not what is, but what we want things to be. In detachment, perception clears. You begin to see reality as it truly is, without distortion. This clarity allows wise action. The person who is detached does not react impulsively to pleasure or pain. They observe both as passing waves in the ocean of life. Joy and sorrow visit, but neither defines them. They understand that everything in existence is temporary. Every gain, every loss, every emotion. And because they understand this, they remain centered in all situations. In relationships, detachment brings harmony. Attachment demands possession. It wants control over others, to make them fit our expectations. This leads to disappointment and pain. But love rooted in detachment is free from possession. It allows others to be themselves. It accepts change without bitterness. To love without clinging is to love purely, without fear of loss. Lao Tzu's wisdom shows that freedom in love comes from trust, from allowing others to flow in their own path, just as we flow in ours. When you detach from the need to own or control, love becomes stronger, not weaker. It transforms from dependence into connection. Detachment is also the key to inner peace. When you let go of what you cannot control, the mind stops struggling. Most mental suffering comes from resistance, wanting things to be different from what they are. But when you accept what is, peace appears naturally. This acceptance is not defeat. It is intelligence. It is the realization that serenity does not depend on conditions but on attitude. The detached person is not cold or uncaring. They are deeply alive because they are not consumed by fear or craving. They move through life with lightness, able to enjoy fully because they are not chained to expectation. Lao Tzu's idea of detachment is the path to freedom because it aligns us with the Tao's natural flow. When you no longer cling, life becomes effortless. Opportunities come and go, but you remain stable. Losses occur, but they do not destroy your peace. Detachment allows you to live in the present moment, appreciating what is without needing to keep it forever. It is the freedom of the river that flows, never the same, yet always itself. The person who lives detached is not separate from life. They are united with it. They act with full presence, but no fear of the outcome. To be detached is to trust the wisdom of the universe more than the desires of the ego. It is to know that nothing truly belongs to us, and that in letting go, we gain everything. Detachment brings freedom, because it dissolves the illusion of control and opens the heart to peace. When one ceases to grasp, life itself begins to flow through them. In that flow lies the quiet power of the Tao, the freedom that nothing external can ever take away. Lao Tzu's wisdom reminds us that the greatest power is not found in control, wealth, or domination, but in harmony with the flow of life. His teachings are not ancient relics. They are living truths that speak directly to the modern soul. In a world that constantly demands more speed, more possessions, more noise, he offers the opposite: simplicity, humility, stillness, and self-mastery. Each lesson is a doorway to freedom, a reminder that peace cannot be chased. It must be allowed. When we learn to flow with life instead of resisting it, to simplify rather than complicate, to master ourselves before trying to master others, to value silence over noise, humility over pride, and detachment over obsession, we begin to touch the essence of the Tao. This is not a path of escape, but of awakening, a way of living that transforms chaos into calm and confusion into clarity. Lao Tzu's wisdom teaches that true greatness is invisible, true power is gentle, and true peace is already within us. The Tao does not ask us to become something else. It invites us to return to what we already are, natural, balanced, and whole. When we live in alignment with these truths, we no longer fight against the current of life. We become the current itself, effortless, free, and eternal.